a saint is chosen to be particularly commemorated, as we see today on this Sunday, where we have been given by the Church the commemoration of St. Gregory Palamas as the Sunday, the second Sunday of the Great Fast. And why indeed this particular saint? Someone who is really not that far from our generations, having already been in the second millennium. You all know that you come in to the church, to the chapel, to your own homes. You venerate icons, you put up candles, and all such things. And some people, not from the faith, look at this and say, why are you worshipping wood, wax, glass, and all these sorts of things? Obviously, they are unaware of the things that have occurred in the world by our Lord Jesus Christ, and the reason why we do such things. If you look at the history of the world from a spiritual point of view, you know that after its creation, which was perfect and very special, death entered. It was like a total remake of the whole world on account of the unrepentant fall of our first parents, Adam and Eve. The whole world was remade, totally remade. And through that remaking, life became incredibly more difficult than it was in that paradisical state that Adam and Eve were actually put into, and in which mankind was supposed to live. Much difficult, infinitely more difficult. Our Lord gave us that in order that future generations, through that difficulty, might strive to know God and seek Him. Some did, but many did not. And the whole world again went to such a sinful state that again it was necessary to remake the world, which was done with the great flood, leaving only one family to be the foreparents of every one of us here and throughout the whole world. And what we see to a largest extent are the remnants of that great flood that remade the world. But there was another remake of the world which is very rarely spoken of. When our Lord Jesus Christ came, when He immersed Himself in the waters of the Jordan, touching His body against material things, the whole of creation was sort of lifted up and obtained a holiness by which no longer could demonic powers dwell in there and cause the suffering that mankind was bearing. The suffering being not necessarily bound up with things like sickness or something, but sufferings about not knowing why the heck are they on earth, why are they born, where are they going. The torturous thing, knowing that you are born into this world and that you're going to die holy body touching that material thing, material world, again rose it up to a higher level. And then at his resurrection, also the world was as if remade. So much so that tombs were opened and many of the dead arose. And like it says in the Gospels, went into the cities and showed themselves to others. So you see there's these periods: fall, remaking, fall, remaking, fall, remaking. And when we come and we venerate an icon, put up a candle, it's not some sort of tradition that we do, but an acknowledgement that material things are important in the Lord's creation, and that he himself has taken on materiality to become one like us. In other words, material things have some sort of life force in them and are given to us to originally enjoy, but also to venerate, because through them now the Holy Spirit does indeed dwell and does not allow demonic powers to take possession of them. It seems today that the world might be ready again for a remake. If you look at the situation and the spiritual state, it's very lamentable. I don't know how bad it was in the times before the flood, or in the times of Sodom and Gomorrah, or anything like that. But we know that those sins, for example, of Sodom and Gomorrah, have now been written into the legislation of many countries as not being sinful anymore, but actually good and encouraged to be done. Bestiality, all sorts of horrors are encouraged to be done with the holy things of your own body and the things that are in the material world. Saint Gregory Palaman is important to us on account of the fact that he re-established this idea by showing to the world at that time that through living a true Christian life, the uncreated light, that all those who are struggling seek, does indeed exist and can be acquired, and therefore those material things of your own body and all can be immersed with this glory and this grace which only a very few taste in this life. But he showed that because during that time there were many disputes by hierarchs and others having high positions in the church, showing that, trying to prove that that is not so. Not only did he prove that theologically, which would be no time to go into that now, but also in his own life, by himself being able to acquire that uncreated light. And we have seen that in saints since that time. Holy Archbishop John comes to mind as the one who is the closest to our time, and who is also, we could say, a co-founder of this little chapel through the St. Herman of Alaska Mission, because he was the one established it, pointed out where it would be from kilometres away, and gave prophecies about how it would exist. Many times seen in this uncreated light. Many, many times. And giving to us in our time another confirmation that these things exist. It's a difficult thing when one person has to stand up to an enormous body of powerful identities in the church who are trying to force upon believers wrong teaching on account that they themselves do not live an Orthodox life. Today we see that throughout the whole world. Hierarchs are doing such things that people are finding nowhere to flee from this. They come to the temples to be absolved of their sins, to eat the flesh and drink the blood of the Lord, as he said, unless you do that, you have no life. And on top of that, they have to put up with teachings that were not ever part of the church. Not ever part of it. Where is it going to end? When are we going to have hierarchs like Holy Archbishop John again, who will not be afraid to stand before the whole world and confess the truth? There is a documentary on right now about the Jews. And basically, one Jew is leading this documentary. And the things that he says about Christianity are such blasphemies that if somebody was to say something like that against Islam or something, they would have been immediately sued and maybe even killed. He even says that Christians worship 5 gods. And he makes a mockery, such a mockery of the holy things. And people watch this and believe this and think that this is the way it is. And all the way from this documentary, from the beginning to end, they can't get away from this notion that they are the only ones that are ever persecuted all the time. As if nobody else was ever persecuted. As if nobody else died for their faith. Look at the lives of the saints there, the books that we have. Do you think that's all of them? That's just a selection of some of the main ones. There are so many martyrs for Christianity. Many, many more than the so-called persecution of Jewish communities over the centuries. But it's funny. Why are they persecuted? I mean, people want to live a basic, simple life with each other. They don't want to persecute anybody, or do anything bad to anybody, unless those others are causing trouble. Isn't that right? And how many times, how many centuries can we endure those sorts of thoughts? There must be some trouble that is caused that persecution occurs. It can't just be just like that. saints of Crimea and the Ukraine. And the great monastery in Kiev Cave Lavra, is actually the centre of that city, and not that square where they've burnt tyres and junk and made a mess. The centre is the great Kiev Caves Lavra, which has holy people living and numerous saints buried in several underground caves there, which people from all of Russia for centuries have come to venerate because they're Russian. No one said this is a Ukrainian saint or Crimean saint. It's such a ridiculous thing. Everybody speaks Russian, all the books are in Russian, saints are in Russian, pilgrims have come backwards and forwards from Russia, and all of a sudden there is a country, Ukraine, the remnant of the evil mind of Stalin, who divided up Russia into controllable units. After the fall of communism, hyper-nationalistic groups decided that it would be a good idea if they kept that. When you go to Kazakhstan, where the people are basically Asian-looking, they all speak Russian. All the signs are in Russian. All the schools are in Russian. You know, you go to some of that Mongolian area, you know what Mongolians look like. They don't speak Russian. Why is this thing happening today in the world? Why don't they go to where the centre is, the great Kiev Caves Lavra, which is like the Mount Athos of southern Russia, and find out the truth about things? As you know, today there is a referendum happening, and already the West is saying we are not going to recognise this outcome. It's like somebody saying to the Americans during an election, we're not going to recognise whoever you elect as your president. They're the same thing. What is all the problem about? Underneath it all is the great lavra of Kiev Caves. That's what they want to destroy and wipe out and get rid of, because that is the centre that shows that all that region is Russia, and that Ukraine is a state like New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia. It's got nothing to do with this country, this invented country that's been around for centuries or anything like that. It's never been like that. There were never borders there which you had to cross and passports that you had to have. It was all one. So, what is going to happen? If it goes into the way of the West, then that lavra will indeed be destroyed. It will be weakened. It will be no longer the Mount Athos of that southern part of Russia. And that will only bring upon the reign of Antichrist closer and closer to us. You know yourself who is behind all those things. You know yourself who finances these so-called revolutions and what else. Because they all need money, and guns and weapons and dynamite and you know yourself, where that all comes from, and you know yourself why that's been done. What else do I have to say to you about that? But be aware that if that part of Russia, the Crimea, the Ukraine, falls into Western hands, it will indeed destroy the spiritual centre of that part of the world. If you've ever visited that centre, you'll see what I mean. The greatness and the holiness. You go into the caves and the fragrance of all the myrrh that is gushing out of all those numerous saints that are there, and the holy fathers that are still alive there, who greet you by your name, not knowing who you are, and asking you things about your life which bother you, not knowing about it, that you've never told them, you've never met them. That's what they want to destroy. May the Lord help us that these things come to pass in the favour of Christian life, in the favour of true orthodoxy, and that people may follow the example of those like St. Gregory Palamas, irrespective of whether there is millions against us, because behind us is Christ and the angels and the saints and the truth, and that's one thing they can never eliminate. The more they step away from the truth, the worse things become in the world. And by truth I mean knowing things as they really are, according to the way the Lord has instigated, in order that we may actually be doing the will of God, fulfilling His will, and preparing this world for that new remake where death will disappear, where there will be no longer suffering or sighing or any of those sorts of things which we experience, and if we use that wisely, can help us to get to the kingdom of heaven. God help you and preserve you. Let us say with our whole soul, with our whole mind, let us say,